Hello and welcome to Take the Lead Presents Virtual Happy Hour. We're glad you're here. I'm Gloria Feldt, co-founder and president of Take the Lead. We host virtual happy hours on the second Wednesday of each month at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We interview women who take the lead in their own lives and careers. So you have 1 hour once a month to boost your career. It's a quick, easy, and fun way to learn what other smart, interesting role model women are up to too. Please tweet your questions to @TakeLeadWomen or type them into the chat box. We want to hear from you and we'll get those questions answered. Take the Lead's mission is nothing less than leadership gender parity by 2025. Visit www.taketheleadwomen.com to find training programs for yourself and your organization. You can also find mentoring, coaching, role model events, and great content to help you on your journey. That's www.taketheleadwomen.com. Now, make yourself comfortable. Grab a cocktail, a mocktail, tea, coffee, glass of water, whatever you like, and sit back for an inspiring virtual happy hour. Hey, I'm Gloria Feldt, and it's my great pleasure to welcome everyone. And it feels so weird to watch that opening thing every time. I just have to tell you all, it just feels really, really weird. So, I just had to put that aside. Anyway, I'm Gloria Feldt, and as you know, I'm co-founder and president of Take the Lead. And my pal here is Reshma.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reshma Gopaldas. I'm the Vice President of Video for SheKnows Media. And I just arrived in LA not even an hour ago. So I'm in a hotel room in a corner right now.
So we are all doing what women do. We are all doing this on the fly this time. And we're showing you that no matter what happens with technology or schedules or anything else, the show must go on. So thank you so much for joining us. I am thrilled that our guest tonight is, see there? Okay, all right. You never know what's going to happen. Our very special guest tonight is Sylvia Acevedo, CEO of Girl Scouts of the USA. Yeah. I got to tell you something. I waited all my life to be able to say this. My guest tonight really is a rocket scientist. Sylvia has worn many hats, including working at NASA, being an engineer at IBM, a rocket scientist at NASA, an award-winning entrepreneur, a businesswoman, a commissioner at the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics, and currently is CEO of one of the most important organizations in the country, in my humble opinion, the Girl Scouts of the USA. She's an author and so much more. So Sylvia, we are thrilled to have you join us tonight.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. And I just did an event. Michelle Obama is in town for the United Nations and the Day of the Girl, which is tomorrow. So you've got me in a lobby. But I didn't want to miss this. So, so this is great.
Fantastic. So, well, we have lots of questions for you, Sylvia, and I'm sure you do too. And we want to tell everybody to remember to share your questions in the chat box, or you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, or you can text them to us at Take Lead Women, and I will get the texts. With those questions, and we will be able to relay them on to Sylvia. Of course, you can ask Reshma any question you want to. Yeah, right? You can ask me too. Anyway.
I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, but
this is great.
Close. I know you. I know what you can do. So, Sylvia, I just, you told me, and I really love your story. And you told me that becoming a Brownie Scout when you were a painfully shy girl changed your life. So before we get into the myriad of professional issues we want to talk about, tell us your story. How did you get to be the you that you are today?
Oh, I really appreciate that. And that has so much to do with Girl Scouts. because you're right. I was a brownie, and my troop leader saw me looking at the sky one night after a campfire. And, you know, my parents had seen me looking at the stars many times, but I never knew there were constellations. I didn't know the difference between planet and stars. And so she saw that, and she saw that interest in me. As a result of that, later on, she remembered. So when girls were earning their badges and other girls were earning cooking badges, she asked me, you know, yes, you can earn your cooking badge, but why don't you consider doing a science badge too? And I did. And by doing that science badge, I made Estes rockets, and it took trial and error. I was not successful the first time. But the great thing about Girl Scouts, it allowed me to do something very untraditional. And I did do that very untraditional thing. And I realized that not only did I like science, I was good at it. And so I started taking more science and math at a time when girls like me weren't doing that. And I got so good at that that I was able to, you know, become an engineer and then a rocket scientist. And what's really cool about the Girl Scouts is you get your own, you get your own patch as a CEO.
Oh, wow.
And so my patch tells my story of the stars I was looking at night. And then I worked on the Voyager 2 mission, which is that Jupiter right there. And then it's got my favorite math symbols because I'm still a nerd and I have favorite math symbols.
Oh, that's incredible.
But, you know, that allowed me to have the right science and math so I could become an engineer. And I did work at NASA, you know, working on those missions as well as the Voyager 2 and the Solar Probe. And that was something that changed my life forever because I had the math skills at the highest level, like, you know, rocket science, right? So then technology was taking off, and I could go and have this amazing technology career because, you know, I had the entrance ticket, which is this great technology background. And then I had a great technology career.
Wow. Well, I just want to say that I am sorry that I happen to be doing this virtual happy hour from my Arizona home, because if I were in my New York home, I would be able to be wearing my Girl Scout badge sash, which I have kept all these years, and I have it. But I never did I was still in the cooking badge stage.
Oh, so I was a brownie too. I don't know where my sash is or my badge or anything. It's somewhere in my parents' house in Connecticut. Yeah. But at the time that I was a brownie, we were building rockets too.
Great.
It was around the time that the Challenger mission happened. So that like really, you know, is my memory of that age. I probably was like 9 years old or something. And I just remember being so enamored by being able to build rockets. And then of course that happened, and it stuck with me for a while, but I did not become a scientist. I went into video instead.
Well, that's right. You know, you still are doing something that's very courageous.
Yeah.
Because we're about girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. And you're doing all those things. So if you were somehow affiliated with the Girl Scouts as a brownie or whatever, I would really encourage people to join the Girl Scout Network on LinkedIn. Put your affiliation.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would love that. That would be great.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yes. Tell everybody who's participating with us this evening. It's on LinkedIn and.
Well, yeah. So, we'd like you to add to your profile that you were a Girl Scout or your brownie. And then there is a network called, or affiliate group it's free on LinkedIn. That's called the Girl Scout Network. So I just recommend that you join that.
Well, cool. I'll join it this very night. That is wonderful.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great.
Oh dear. Yes, I was a scout leader also. So I've done the whole thing. I've done the whole full circle, you know, and it was great, and it was very meaningful. And I don't want to focus only on the Me Too movement because we have so many things to talk about. But because this week everybody's been talking about 1 year since it burst onto the scene. Obviously, Tarana Burke had started the hashtag a decade ago, but the shocking media stories of about a year ago catapulted the movement to the forefront. Right. And I wrote about it in my column this week on the Sum on Medium, that there are many challenges of raising both boys and girls in the complex world today. But especially, I think it's going to be the girls who create the culture change that we need to have. And I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on that, and what you think about a year after. What have we learned, and what do we need to apply now to the next generation?
Well, you know, at Girl Scouts, we've got this great network. We're in every residential zip code. And so we really doubled down on civics and helping girls learn about civics, even at age 5 all the way to age 18. And we opened up our toolkit, which we really haven't done for other programs, about how do you teach your daughter about civic engagement. And that matters so much, because whatever movement you're looking at, you've got to change laws, you've got to change policy. And if you're not getting out to vote, if you're not going to those meetings, you're not going into the board meetings, if you're not doing all those things, you're really not going to be able to make lasting change. And I'm so grateful that within Girl Scouts, we've been able to really increase the number of girls who are taking those civics badges, from the Good Neighbor badge, which is a daisy, all the way up to, you know, finding common ground, getting out the vote. How do you shape public policy? And I think that's why, you know, more than half of all female elected officials in America, they share a Girl Scout history. And I think it's because as a young girl, you learned, when you earned those badges, how to get your voice out in making positive change in the world. So
that's an astonishing statistic. 50% of female elected officials have been Girl Scouts. That's really astonishing. So Reshma, you live in the world of media and news and entertainment. What are some of your perspectives on what we've learned in the past year? What's going on now?
It's interesting. You know, a year ago, I would say, when the Me Too movement started trending, I believe Alyssa Milano brought it back to the forefront on Twitter. And then someone said, oh, Tarana Burke actually started this, you know, years ago. I felt actual such relief in a way that, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, finally. I didn't think that we would live through a time where this sort of accountability. And so I really did, as each story kept coming out, you know, obviously there was innate sadness there, but I felt so relieved. I was like, oh, finally women are being seen. And then fast forward to the past 2 weeks, and you know, as much as people are like, oh, it's so depressing, we're not making any progress, I actually think this is what progress feels like, and it's just uncomfortable. And but it's like, you know, like you said, with Girl Scouts, with all sorts of programs, we need to be educating like young girls. And I also think we need to educate young men, because that's the only way this is actually going to change too. I was on Twitter yesterday, which is a really bad habit, especially during these news cycles. And someone, I believe she's conservative, she said, oh, you know, now we have to worry about our sons going on dates alone. I'm going to tell him to bring his cell phone, to bring a friend, to do this. And a dad responded on Twitter and said, I'm just going to teach him how to respect women. It seems much cheaper. And so that's what I think. I think you know, what the Girl Scouts is doing is so amazing. Even at SheKnows, a year before the Me Too movement started trending, we did a video with It's On Us. And the video was just a lot of young kids from, I would say, 10 years old to college years, holding signs of the things we heard growing up, which were, watch your drink. Should you really be wearing that? Man up. Don't cry like a girl. Do this, do that. And the blatant way we talk to young men versus how we talk to young women, the onus of everything is on young women. So our video basically is about changing the conversation. And I think that's what we're in the middle of right now. And it's difficult.
Well, one of the things that I wrote about in my column, and I'm sorry to keep reflecting back on it, but I've been thinking a lot about this lately, is my own experience of having been told that if you're dancing with a partner, a male partner, if a mistake is made, it's always the woman's fault because she's supposed to be following. And at first I thought about the injustice of telling a girl that it's always her fault. And then I realized the other side of that injustice is that what it tells the boys is they can't make a mistake.
Exactly.
I mean, you talk about what those kinds of messages that give boys and young men a message of privilege that we never, you know, that they never lose, is not very healthy either.
Right.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the hearings we saw that with
Oh boy.
Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, to me, that was, I grew up in kind of Greenwich, Connecticut. So I went to school with a lot of Brett Kavanaughs, I'd like to say. And so that privilege or the way he spoke was just hilarious to me. I was like, oh, this is like being in high school again. And the way that he assumed that, he was making excuses for everything, like the yearbook page. And, it was truly shocking to see how the two different sexes are still to this day being treated.
Right. So that makes me want to jump right to a rather controversial topic right now, Sylvia. And that is that the Boy Scouts are now allowing girls to become scouts, right? And I'd love to get your take on that. Is that good? Is it bad? I mean, isn't it important for girls and boys to learn to get together and to learn that both of them can build campfires and both of them can do, all of these things that we teach the girls in Girl Scouts, and the boys ostensibly are being taught those things in Boy Scouts? Is that a plus? Is it a minus? And what impact do you anticipate it will have on the Girl Scouts? So I know those are several big questions. So unpack them all for us.
Sure. So first of all, we're completely separate organizations, completely. And so our programming is totally different. So they are not at all the same. So think about it. For 100 years, we've been the experts in how girls learn and lead. And we've got amazing outcomes as a result of that. So we're going to stay focused on girls and keeping the girl in Girl Scout. Now, there's a ton of co-ed. We live in a co-ed world, but research shows that girls, especially learning non-traditional topics, learn best in a single gender environment. I mean, if you think about it, you need that sisterhood, the networking. If you didn't, think about corporations. Most corporations, large corporations, have an affiliate group, right? An employee affiliate group for different groups, because you want that networking, you want that commonality, that community. Well, in Girl Scouts, girls who try to do non-traditional things like lead, learning technology, they often don't even raise their hand, much less get called on. And in Girl Scouts, they've got that great space to do that. So, we don't focus on other organizations. We really focus on how can we be better. And we're always focused on how can we be more relevant to girls. Things are changing quite a bit. The fact that we've been able to really hold on to our membership at a time where girls have so many choices, but girls are still choosing Girl Scouts. We have 1.8 million girls. I mean, this is really fantastic. So we're going to continue to do that. What you will see from us is, we hold on to our traditions, but we also are looking at, we know girls all have a mobile device in their hand, and the world is being recreated around data. And what we want is girls to be the designers, the creators, inventors of technology, not just the users of technology. So for Girl Scouts, we know, for example, STEM in the civic space. So if you say, well, what does STEM have to do with STEM? How do you get out the vote? You get out the vote using algorithms. You don't think Facebook had an impact on elections? My goodness, those are algorithms. Did we have enough women and girls at the table when those decisions were being made? I don't know, right? But think about our phones are going to become our physicians. So if we don't have girls and women as lawyers, as marketeers, as designers, asking the question, what happens if, because I'm wearing earbuds, this phone knows I'm pregnant before I do? And by the way, they've made an agreement with the insurance carriers. So guess what? I don't know this yet, but I get bounced out of or I get put in a higher risk category paying more money. So I think these are important ethical decisions, but a girl and women should be in those discussions, and they should be familiar and comfortable enough with technology so that they can be part of that. But think about what we're focused on. The world is being recreated around data. And if you don't feel comfortable knowing about even a little bit about computer programming or a little bit about technology, you're going to stay away from those very important discussions. And think about I was at the Fashion Institute here in New York. $3 trillion industry. That's $1 trillion. It's being remade around data. You don't even, in some classes, you don't even need scissors anymore, but you do need now how to do a little bit of programming on the Cricut, which is an automated program. Or now a lot of the hand design classes are going away and they're going to computer-aided design classes. You don't know how to do a little bit of that? That industry is closed to you. But that's happening in all industries. And that's how the future is going to be remade. So this is the moment when we need to have girls who have the courage, the confidence, and the character, as well as the skills to not only let our voices be heard, but to have the technology skills to create the world.
I totally agree with all that. And actually, I can speak to, I went to a single-sex high school. And so all of the benefits of single-sex education, I completely agree with. The only thing that I would say that I felt, so I went to Greenwich Academy and we had a brother school, which was a 5-minute walk, which once you hit 9th grade, you'd start having classes at the brother school. So we kind of did get the best of both worlds. I think the statistic is that a lot of girls' confidence at age 13 just plummets. So I think single-sex education is a wonderful way to kind of head that off so they don't have to deal with that. I did feel, though, that sometimes I was so not used to going to classes with boys that when I was in those co-gender classes, I was quiet. I was like, I didn't really know, I didn't have the confidence that I had when I was like with my girlfriends at Greenwich Academy. So I completely agree with that. And I think we need to play to it. But I also think we need to teach young men how to coexist with women in a way that they're not talking on 85% of the conference calls, because that is what's happening.
So there's a whole other thing about that. But what I'll talk about, well, the great thing about Girl Scouts, you're right, in that single gender, you learn all and you get that confidence. But what we do at Girl Scouts is we ask you to take leadership to make an impact in the world. So to earn your bronze, your silver, your gold awards, you've got to make an impact on life. And that's in a co-ed environment. So when you think about that, and part of the Girl Scout experience is not in this, you learn your skills, you get your sisterhood, you get all of that. But then we ask you to go and make a difference in the world. And what I love, like in our Gold Award, which is the highest award, that really is, how can you have grand impact? How can you be that grand problem solver? This year, one of our top Gold Award Girl Scouts, she's the one that got Alaska Airlines to stop using plastic straws because her project is about sustainability of the ocean, and plastic has a big impact. In New Hampshire, one of our girls, she got the law changed in New Hampshire about child marriage. So come on, that's in a political environment, right? Girls got laws changed in Colorado and Oregon around secondhand smoke. Those are very much, again, in male environments. So they got the confidence, they got the skills, but then as part of Girl Scouts, you're asked to go and make a difference in the world.
That's fantastic. Here's a question for you. I mean, do you envision Girl Scouts admitting boys?
Never.
Why?
I have a question to add to that.
Okay.
What about transgender kids?
So Girl Scouts is completely focused on keeping the girl in Girl Scouts. I mean, think about all the research we just talked about, right? So this is what we do really well. There are a lot of great co-ed organizations. Yay, go. If you believe in that, go focus on that. We're going to stay really focused on this. Now, in terms of transgender, we do not get in between a child and their parent. Remember, we're with youth. We're not with adults. We're with youth. And so if a parent and a family presents their child as a girl, we accept them as a girl.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
That's a great answer too. So we have a question that I want to go ahead and ask you that has come in. I just have to find it here. I know that I have it. I want to make sure that we let you answer all these questions. Oh, Shauna from Maryland wants to know, she says, there are so many complex and yet incredibly important current events affecting women. This is a pivotal time for women and history is being made now. How early can we start discussing these issues with our young girls?
Reshma?
Well, so as Gloria knows, I used to work at Planned Parenthood, and with my current company, we have a kids video series that's focused on education and digital literacy for kids. And at Planned Parenthood, obviously, we had many programs that were sex education, and I have plenty of nieces and nephews too. And I'll tell you that from everything I've seen, the younger you start these conversations, the more impact they have on kids, no matter what you're talking about. You know, when you're talking about respect of other genders, when you're talking about sex, just making that a part of the conversation very early. So it is not something that's like shocking to them or like out of nowhere. You know, in our family, I was raised by very strong women, and so was my younger brother. You know, that's why when we watch the news together, he is like blown away by how some of these men talk. So for me personally, in my experience, I just think starting the conversation younger is the way to go, and being honest with kids. They're smart.
Yeah, these things are, you know, I think sometimes you have to be age appropriate. Just recently, it's interesting. I just wrote a book. It's a middle school memoir, Path to the Stars. And it's really middle school. But some kids are, you know, great readers. But there's a challenging section where my younger sister gets meningitis and has a very high fever. And it really affects her so that she becomes developmentally disabled. Now, I just finished this big book tour all around the country for Path to the Stars. But, you know, younger girls, younger kids, because both, it's interesting, elementary school boys and girls love the book. Once you get into middle school, girls love the book. Boys are like afraid to say something, right? So that's a whole other thing as well. But what I found was when there was girls that were good readers, but they were reading the book, it was emotionally a little high for them. That section about my younger sister getting sick, you know, having a fever, they could really identify with that, and they emotionally would get stuck there. And while, you know, but that's a middle school memoir, right? It's written very respectfully. So I really encourage parents, you know, if, you know, when you're talking about emotional stuff, really be aware of what age and developmental stage your child is. Yes, you can expose them to things, but make sure that, you know, they've got a safe place to ask questions, you know, because it is a tough, it can be tough, and you don't want to get them to emotionally fry, you know, because they don't understand how to deal or process those emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so Sylvia, that's so important about age appropriate. You know, my cousin has two young daughters who are 8 and 6, and the 6-year-old, and their mom is white, their dad is Indian, and my cousin's wife called me and she said, listen, Asha's coming home from school every day and she's saying that she doesn't want to be brown anymore. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Like, did you ever feel this way? And I never felt that way, which is really shocking because I was in Greenwich, Connecticut. But she and I talked about it, and I said, you know, because they're very honest when they're talking about the news and politics and this and that. I was like, you know, a 6-year-old, it's okay if they don't hear everything. Right. Let her enjoy her childhood. So I totally see what you mean with age appropriate. Mm-hmm. But parents determine that. So
right. Yeah, and you kind of got to answer the questions when they're asked.
That's correct. That's a good way of saying it. That's a great way of defining
it. Right. Well, I want to get back to Sylvia to getting you to give some tips to women, and not just about raising their girls, but also how they can utilize these skills to rise in the ranks of what many see as a boys' club in general. So I'm going to come back to that in just a second, but it's time when I need to remind people where they are, and that this is Take the Lead's monthly virtual happy hour, and that every month on the second Tuesday of the month at 6:30 Eastern time. And we sort of figure, you know, you can make happy hour anytime. You can make it happy, whatever, you know, it can be tea in the morning or coffee or whatever, you know, whatever it is that floats your boat. It'll be a happy hour. And that our mission at Take the Lead is to prepare, develop, inspire, and propel women to take their fair and equal share of leadership positions across every sector by 2025, which is anywhere from 70 to 150 years faster than people say it can be done. But I kind of like to do things that people say can never be done. So I'm quite sure that, particularly because there are great organizations like Girl Scouts out there, and with all the other work that's being done, and with the moment that we are in history right now, I'm pretty sure that we can do it. So I just want to encourage everybody to visit our website at taketheleadwomen.com to learn about our training programs, which we have for individuals and for companies and for organizations. And I'm going to just take a minute to just run down a few of those, which I don't usually get a chance to do. But if you'll indulge me, because we have two of our signature 50 Women Can Change the World programs open for registration, or you can nominate somebody if you think they would fit in one of those programs, or you can nominate yourself and register. I want to just mention those. The 50 Women Can Change the World in nonprofits will be starting in Phoenix in November, and the 50 Women Can Change the World in finance will be starting in New York very soon as well. So we're already taking nominations for those, and then shortly after that, 50 Women Can Change the World in journalism will also be starting in New York. So keep an eye on our website, and those are immersive programs for cohorts of 50 women at a time. They are for women who are emerging leaders or who are on their way up in their careers, and we provide a very immersive 3-month program that involves training at a very deep level, including really looking at the nature of power and how we can reconstruct it, deconstruct it, and reconstruct it so that it's comfortable for us as women, and we want to embrace it. And then that leads to the 9 leadership power tools and very specific tools and tips to use to thrive in the world as it is while you're changing it. And then also each woman makes a strategic leadership action plan for herself, which we follow up to make sure they're actually doing. So as you can see, it's not just your basic come to a one-day workshop kind of thing. It's a commitment. But the real secret sauce of it is that you become very close with the 50 women in the cohort, and the cohort members start helping each other and becoming a support system for each other. So those 3 programs are already, you can go to our website and you can find how to learn more about them, or to nominate somebody who you think is appropriate for the program, or nominate yourself. We'd love for you to nominate yourself. We also do corporate training and coaching programs that provide real solutions and facilitate communication across genders. And I mentioned that specifically because of the conversation we had a moment ago about Me Too, because lots of corporate culture is going to have to change, and you can't change it without communication. So we provide those kinds of solutions, and also to help women get to leadership parity. We have an online leadership certificate course. I believe that you should be able to see, or will shortly, links to all of these different things in the chat box. And you know, I've never before plugged a fundraiser, but I'm going to plug this one because it's going to be so cool. On December 15th, we have the theater for a matinee of Gloria, a Life, the other Gloria, that is, Gloria Steinem.
Wow.
So we'll be sending out details about that to everybody soon. So there'll be receptions, and there'll be all kinds of cool stuff going on. So I know you have to make plans for that kind of thing way in advance. So pardon me for taking the time to talk about it here, but I wanted to be sure and start to get the word out. So please send in your questions, and using the chat box or on Twitter. And I'm going to see, I think I might have seen some questions coming in here. I'm looking for that. So I want to, yes.
One of the things I wanted to chat about was I just had this amazing experience with the book launch going around the country. And I went to every part of the country. So Deep South, you know, Midwest, the Heartland, Denver, throughout Texas, California. I mean, really, you know, and obviously the Northeast as well. And since it's a middle school memoir, I did go to some all-girls schools, but mostly, you know, co-ed schools. I have to say, when you go to elementary schools, both girls and boys are raising their hand. I got to middle school, and girls stopped raising their hands. Mm-hmm. It was amazing to me. You know, and you get to, you know, in Austin, Texas, I went to the Ann Richards School for Young Women Leaders, and, you know, they had to extend the time. So many girls were asking questions, so engaged. Go to a middle school, and unless I said, I will only take questions by alternating girl, boy, did girls finally raise their hand? And to me, that's such a metaphor for what we're seeing happening out in the workplace, or out in, what's happening in the public arena. So we don't use our voice. And then when we finally get there, we're so angry. We've kind of just jumped to anger, but we forgot to put in all these things so that we can actually make constructive change.
Oh boy, do I ever agree with you there. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I think righteous indignation feels really good, but ultimately it doesn't get you anywhere.
Right.
It can get you a little bit. I mean, one of the reasons, getting back to the Me Too movement for one second, just, I think as girls, we're all taught, don't make waves, be quiet. It'll get better. Just keep quiet. Don't make the situation worse. And I think it's such a systemic thing that we teach girls that we're in the middle of changing that right now. But I think that's one of the reasons why girls still are like, oh, this isn't where I should be talking. And boys just never ask for permission. So
no, not at all. And I have to say, I was really disappointed, regardless of the part of the country I went to. That was a common experience. So we still have a lot of work to do with girls, wanting them to take the lead and having them take the lead, and realizing, when you think about your organization, what you're trying to do, Gloria, or you're going to do, it starts with young girls taking the lead.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what are 3 tips, Sylvia, that you would offer to each of us, to anyone who has a girl, is raising a girl? What are 3 of the main tips that you would offer them that you think would help them raise girls who are ready to raise their hands, no matter if the room is full of boys?
Well, of course, the first one is have her become a Girl Scout. So
of course, that's why I said 3.
That one. I know.
So give us the other 2.
But the other option, the other things that are really important is to, and I really like this because we include this in Girl Scouts quite a bit, which is it's okay to fail. And I think a lot of times girls stop themselves because they think, I can't be perfect. And if I can't be perfect and I can't do that, I'm not the good girl, that perfect girl, I'm not going to be able to try. So that's such a high standard for a girl. So helping them see that, trial and error and learning, that's how you build up the persistence, the resilience that is so necessary. And, as you mentioned, this is what progress looks like. If you haven't built up that persistence muscle, you're going to give up, because when you face, when there's a front lash, there's a backlash, right? And that's kind of how things change. If you expect it to be really easy and you haven't built up that persistence and resilience, I think that is something that is really important for parents with girls, that you need to be persistent and resilient. And the other thing, and I think this is embedded in Girl Scouts, is creating that sisterhood, having a network, whether your network is female or co-ed or whatever, but you don't have to do things alone. And that matters quite a bit because you can find like-minded people who will join you on, and it's much easier to make an impact. Kind of like what you're doing here with Take the Lead. It's a perfect model, Gloria, right? You're modeling, this is how you do it. So I would really encourage those 3 things.
And as women start to think about the careers they might want to have, your story is particularly instructive. But how do you think we can give more women that level of vision about what they can do in their lives, and that intentionality that you had? And I keep thinking about how important that one Brownie leader was to you.
Yeah. I think understanding that you can create opportunity and you can create the future, that really matters to women and girls. Well, it matters to everybody, because that's how you create opportunity. But it does require stating what you want. And I think what you did was brilliant. You said, I want this to happen by 2025. If you're not even saying it and claiming it, how on earth is it ever going to happen? And you've got to say, this is what I want. And then really prepare yourself to be that. You may not know how you're going to get there, but because you've named it, now you become focused on that. It's interesting. I wanted to get to the White House. And I didn't want to get to the White House because of me. I wanted to get because I thought whatever I was doing would have such an impact that it would be recognized at the national level. And I felt like that's what would make me feel good. So what I did was I bought an outfit that I would wear at the White House. Oh. And I spent all this money on this outfit. And I would look at that outfit and I would be like, it wasn't about the outfit. It was about the focus on how do I get something to nationally scale so that it's that impactful that I get invited to the White House. And I'm proud to say that that happened. When I was trying on the outfit, I did have to work out and lose a few pounds because I'd gained some weight in the process. And what was really fun about that was I was seated in the second row behind ambassadors and all these people, and President Obama talked. And as he was walking by, he reached over ambassadors to shake my hand. And I think it was because of the cool outfit I was wearing. But you know, and I thought, man, all those hours of visualization, but it really wasn't about that. It was about, because of all the kids that we reached, we gave 250,000 books. We started tens of thousands home libraries. 11,000 kids got glasses that didn't have glasses, gave away 25,000 sport balls. I mean, improved parent engagement. That's what got me to the White House. And that's what makes me happy, was that we did this work that was at that national level.
But having a symbolic thing like the outfit I'm going to wear to the White House had to be something of a motivator to you. I love the symbolism of it. It's about intentionality, which is so critically important.
Yeah, Gloria, I just saw something online yesterday that said, where do you want to be in January 2019? Imagine that, and now do the work. And it's such a simple thing. And I was like, oh, I want to have finished my book proposal by then. And I was like, oh, I have a lot to do. I have a lot, but it makes you work towards a goal.
It's interesting. When I just did this book tour, so many kids said, well, how did you get where you are? And I'd say, you set your goals and then you put the plan and you focus, and that's what you do. And they're like, well, but what did you do? And I was like, that's it. That's the magic.
The magic is, as Oprah says, there is no magic.
Absolutely.
You just got to do it. You just got to do it.
Yep.
So to move back to the Girl Scouts for just a second, when you're looking forward to speaking of intentionality and vision and where do you want to go from here, as you're looking at the next, say, 2 or 3 years with the Girl Scouts, what do you want to have happened for the Girl Scouts as an organization? Not just for the girls, but I mean for the Girl Scouts as an organization. What do you want to have happened by then?
So we're going to really own our power. So think about this. Our Girl Scout movement in the United States every year spends $1 trillion and $1 billion. $1 billion, right? What other women's organization spends $1 billion annually? So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our partners and vendors have 30% female leadership and commit to gender pay parity. All right, so that's one of the things that you're going to see. Now think about that. Imagine other organizations joining in on that. But we've got the power of the purse, which we've never used that way. And it's interesting to me that some of our vendors, as we're talking about, we're going to be rolling this out in the next few years, you'll see this, that already they've started putting women on the account as account executives, right? It's like, and they go, oh yeah, they were going to be on that anyway, right? Yeah, right. Right. So think about that. That $1 billion represents quite a few jobs all across America. But we're also going to be teaching girls that to model, because Girl Scouts, when they get to keep their cookie cash, a percentage of their cookie proceeds, and they get to spend it. But we want to teach them, how do you want to spend that money around the gender parity? And as we've been testing this with girls, they've said, oh, so like when we go and we're staying at a hotel, can we say, is there a woman manager of the hotel? I said, that's exactly what we want you to do. So that's one thing. The other one is, you know, with technology, you're going to see us continue to really expand. But technology touches everything, which is, you know, the world is being remade around that. So you're going to see us continue to do that. Embracing the out of doors, because the first S in STEM is science, and science is being outdoors. But we're also going to make sure that a third of our programming is unplugged. And the reason is that most of our technology has been designed not by women, and not by how women learn and connect and collaborate. So many of our projects we want to be done in a way that they can wonder, they can create. They're not going to be artificial boundaries. And then the other thing is, you know, many youth serving organizations have a service award. We do, we have the bronze and the silver, but there is only one service award that has a grand impact, and that's the gold award. Yes, the Boy Scout has an eagle, the 4-H has a platinum. There's great service awards. That's fantastic, and I really encourage that. But the gold award is at such a level that a girl has to have a grand impact. She has to have met a grand challenge in her community, like changing the law on child marriage, like changing secondhand smoke laws, like creating a video about sexual assault and sex trafficking that now the FBI uses. So our Gold Award Girl Scouts, for many reasons, haven't gotten the acclaim for being able to have these amazing, having stood up and made an answer to the grand challenge. And they've said, this is a grand challenge and I'm going to solve it. So you're going to see a lot more on that. Those girls are going to be able to get their due for what they've done.
Okay, well, let me ask Reshma then. Reshma, from a media perspective, what needs to happen for
Are you kidding? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to cover all those gold award winners. It's like, I want to do videos on all of them. Well, and that's kind of the answer. You know, we have to start paying attention and highlighting this like amazing work that young women are doing, and encouraging it, you know. I mean, that like immediately I thought of my nieces and I was like, oh my gosh, one of them would love to do that. And they're both Girl Scouts, you know. So from a media perspective, it's up to all of us, the storytellers, to find those stories, to highlight those important stories. And then, you know, as parents and aunts and uncles, you know, friends even, to encourage kids to especially girls, to try, like, try all of this. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, it's really interesting to us because we've been promoting the Gold Award, and newspapers across America say, well, we cover Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts. And we said, well, how about Girl Scouts? And they said, no. And, you know, it's amazing. And for girls, it's a big eye opener for them that they themselves haven't cracked that code. And that's one thing that we're challenging them. Mm-hmm. Because it isn't just so simply like, hey, that's fair. And they're like, well, no, that's not, no. So it's like, I'll give you a great example. In Miami, at the state fair, there was traditionally, they give space to girls and boys Scouts. And so for Boy Scouts, it was 10,000, I think it was like 10,000 square feet, right? For Girl Scouts, it was this little tiny area. And the girls said no. And they went to the county, and the county said, sorry, that's grandfathered clause. Okay? But you know what? The girls didn't take that no. They kept pushing. And you know what they did? They started on social media. 40,000. Finally, the county said, okay. But then the girls go, oh gosh, we're not really ready for 10,000, but we're going to fill it no matter what, right? But you know, you've got to push through, because it isn't going to be frequently, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't know. It wasn't an issue of awareness. It was an issue of a practice or a bias or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask you a favor right now, which is that given that we are going to be doing 50 Women Can Change the World in journalism starting in February of next year, I would love to have any data that you have about some of these disparities that you've just been talking about, because we can make that an issue in this cohort, and we'll see if we put 50 women who can change the world on the case.
Well, that would be fantastic. I'll tell you, it's really, I have a friend who's big into sports, and she says, do you notice that the pictures of women in sports, they're typically for them diving for the ball in an awkward position. It's not as being a successful athlete, right? And I wish she hadn't told me that, because I can't look at sports pages now and go, darn it, she's right. It's not that fantastic, I'm the champion picture. It's normally, other than Brandy Chastain in that famous taking off her shirt bra one, right?
Right.
It's normally, the picture is them scrambling over a ball, like in basketball, or, on the sand in beach volleyball. And I was like, oh, I wish they had not told me that. So when you're talking about journalism, it's really important that they look out for those voices and to lift up the voices of girls and women.
Absolutely. It's you have to see that there is a story, and then you have to be willing to tell the story, and then you have to tell the story through a lens that that communicates women in a way that is in fact equal to what the rest of the stories. So we are starting to get to wrap up time, and I wanted to give you a moment to talk more about your book, and you talked a little bit about what inspired you to write it, but I think you should tell people again the name of it and where they can buy it, and maybe you'll have more middle school girls who get the opportunity to read it and be inspired by it.
Oh, thank you very much. It's called Path to the Stars. It's also, I asked that it come out in Spanish at the same time, so it's also Camino a las Estrellas, so it's in Spanish. So if you're trying to bring, you've got your rusty Spanish from high school, if you want a very accessible book, this is very accessible because the Spanish is written at the middle school level. And, I wrote it because middle school is like that last moment that if you have a little bit of algebra, if you have a little bit of math, you are going to have all these opportunities of jobs available to you. But if you don't have just a little bit, a lot of those doors of opportunity are going to be closed to you. So I wrote it for kids with that in mind. My mental image from New York is an elevator door with closing, and I just stuck my foot and my hand in it just enough. And it's like, okay, in middle school, this is the last chance, right? And so I hope that this inspires them, because frankly, I grew up on, part of my life was on a dirt street, and we were near poverty, living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes not even having enough money to the next paycheck. And I was able to have this amazing life. And I grew up in Las Cruces, New Mexico, small town, but I was able to do that, and they can too. And so for me, I was a pioneer in so many ways. And so I feel like Path to the Stars, I want it to be a highway. I want the number of girls and, even boys, that to be a highway, you're living your dream. So Path to the Stars, you can buy it, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, your local independent. It's selling very well. It's really selling quite well. So I'm very happy about it. It's schools are finding it to have lots of compelling stories for today's youth.
That's fantastic.
That's great.
It's a great role model book. And actually, I'm going to take, because we have just a couple of extra minutes here, I'm going to ask each of you actually to speak to the various cultural issues, because we've talked about gender a lot, but we're dealing with many different cultures in this country. And how do you navigate that? How do you help girls navigate that? And how do we provide the role models in a way that would be culturally relevant?
Reshma, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll start on this. So obviously I grew up in an Indian family here, and culturally, my family was a little different because my grandmother and grandfather lived with us and they helped raise us. And so my mom and my grandmother were two very strong, outspoken women. But culturally, India, like probably America too, women are taught to not say much. Now, my family is different in that we had two women leading our family who did not believe in that. But at one point, they were raised with that kind of thinking, and they evolved or changed. But, I could still feel it when I was in middle school and everything. And I was quiet because a lot of times, my dad and I would get into arguments, and my mom and grandmother would be like, Reshma, can you just don't upset people? And, so I do think I see it now as I've gotten older, but encouraging young women that it's okay if they show how they feel. It's okay if they make waves, and encouraging young men to let their sisters speak, to not put them down all the time. I have a nephew and two nieces who I'm very close to, and the nephew is the older one, and I'm always telling him, because he'll make fun of his little sisters. I was like, what you say to them is incredibly important. He's like, oh, they don't care what I think. I was like, they do. And so it's raising feminist men is really important. But culturally, I do think it is challenging, just coming from an Indian family for me personally. And, because you're trying so hard to fit into this culture, but you also, you want to evolve, and you want to not just be the girl who's being quiet and letting everyone else talk around her.
And you want to keep the culture you have too. You want to be able to own it. So Sylvia, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I thought what you said was really wonderful. So I know you're coming at the end, and I really wanted to thank you for this opportunity. Reshma, what a fun opportunity it was. We'll definitely have to connect.
I know. I was going to say, we're going to have to grab coffee. I think our offices are close to each other, because I'm so interested in covering those girls.
All right. We got a good networking thing going on here.
Tomorrow, watch the Today Show, because tomorrow is the Day of the Girl, and so we're going to have one of our top 10 Gold Award Girl Scouts. She's going to be on the Today Show, and I think another one of them is going to be on Yahoo Finance. So they'll be doing a lot of stuff.
We're
definitely highlighting.
Great.
All right. We will totally be
very exciting.
So all right. So Sylvia, this is the moment when I'm going to ask you, what key takeaway do you want to leave people with tonight?
So I think there's, one, support Girl Scouts. Why? Because Girl Scouts is really about the rising generation of girls and equipping them. If we can have as much success as we had in the 20th century, in the 21st century, it's going to be amazing. I mean, half of all the female elected officials were Girl Scouts. Almost every female astronaut, she was a Girl Scout. Imagine amplifying that in the 21st century. Then we're going to make your dreams, all of our dreams, come true.
You just gave me so much incredible hope. So thank you so much, Sylvia Acevedo.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Reshma. Thank you.
Girl Scouts of the USA. And I want to thank all of our guests who have participated with us this evening. Remember, the second Tuesday of the month at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us for virtual happy hour next month. Our guest will be the very fabulous Tiffany Dufu, author of Drop the Ball, a primer on how not to worry about being perfect and yet to thrive as a professional woman, a parent, and a human being. And she's also the founder of The Crew, which I'm very eager to find out about. So be sure you mark your calendar to join us. Connect with Take the Lead, please. We want to stay in touch with you. Let us know if there's somebody you'd particularly like us to have on our virtual happy hour. We're everywhere: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Connect with us everywhere and tell us what you think. So thank you all for being here with us this evening.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Gloria.
Bye, Reshma.
Bye, Sylvia. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining Take the Lead Presents Virtual Happy Hour. Be sure to tune in again next month. Remember, it's the second Wednesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 1 hour, once a month, to boost your career. Until then, power to you.